throughout the Connecticut technical system and as superintendent in Westbrook. So we're very happy she's going to be with us during our transitional phase. So thank you very much, Pat, for diving in with us. We appreciate that.
Thank you for the chance.
Okay, we have one letter of communication tonight. If you wouldn't mind sharing that. Actually, we have two letters of communication. We're going to have Pat share the first letter of retirement.
So the first is the announcement from Mr. Strome. It's a very short letter. He was sort of surprised at how short it is himself when I spoke with him today, but the letter is serving to inform you that I'll be retiring from Lebanon School District after the 2021 school year. It's always interesting when folks retire, and it's appropriate to really think about what they've brought. He was hired in 1989. He taught science at Lyman Memorial High School now for 32 years. He served as the science department head for the bulk of that time, or the majority of those years. He was a candidate for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science Teaching for secondary school teachers back in 1991. He was awarded District Teacher of the Year for the year 97-98, and he was Lyman's Teacher of the Year for school year 17-18. But I think probably the highest praise, and something we ought to think about, is the fact that someone who has known him for many years shared that he was always well known for his teaching style, and that many of his former students, and that's really high praise, when you have former students come back, or alums, to say that they always commented on how prepared his classes made them for their college careers. And that's a very important transition that we're all looking for. So in the other section, the voting section of the agenda, I would ask that you accept with great regret his retirement.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Pat. We also had one other letter of communication come into the full board about in support of a full-time high school assistant principal, and also with that, an increase of the 0.4 FTE social studies teacher. This came to us from Mr. Oakes, who is one of our special ed teachers at Lyman, who's speaking on behalf of many of the teachers at Lyman. So that is just a letter of communication that we wanted to make sure was broadcast publicly. So I just briefly summarized it. Okay. All right. Let us move on to our public participation. By order of our bylaws, public participation, we will allot 30 minutes. Each individual speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, with a total of 30 minutes dedicated to public participation if necessary. With that, are there any members of the public who would like to speak tonight? Ken? Yes, please, and make sure it's on.
Yeah, the letters, it's not, I don't think it's on.
The straight line.
The straight line.
So now it's on. Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Ken Oakes, special education teacher at Lyman, and one of the building reps. I want to thank the interim superintendent and the board chair, first of all, for visiting Lyman this afternoon. As you can tell, we have a great staff and great students. And every single one of our students, at least in theory, right now, is sitting at their kitchen table studying for midterm exams, which start this Thursday. At least we hope they are. Many of their parents, by the way, watch these board meetings from their living rooms on YouTube once a month. I recently learned, pleasantly, that some of my students are watching these meetings too. And that explains why today, after you guys left our classroom, a lot of the students said regarding Sarah, hey, that person seems really familiar. Where have we seen her before? Anyway, there are many things on teachers' minds right now that I have been hearing. I'm sure you can imagine at the forefront of these are the vaccines that are coming out. Other school districts seem to be way ahead of us, maybe by a couple of days, maybe by a week. Educators feel like they're in the dark about when vaccinations will start for us, how this process is going to work logistically, and where these shots will take place. And I think each one of those things is very critical. Bringing the vaccines into the schools and vaccinating people in the parking lot or in some big area, rather than having teachers go and make individual appointments at some office somewhere, would certainly increase the rates of uptake. This will result in healthier and happier teachers, and it will greatly reduce the risk of staff shortages in the future. Teachers would greatly appreciate new information regarding vaccines as it becomes available in the coming days. Separately, the wireless internet at the high school is experiencing some regional outages, and I just want to be clear, this is nobody's fault. It's not Jacques' fault. It's just something that many other towns have been dealing with it as well. For the internet, it's preventing distance learners from accessing some of their courses. This was disruptive yesterday and today because many of the teachers are in the process of reviewing critical information for midterm exams, which begin this week. Again, it's nobody's fault, but the outages are happening, and they're happening to other towns. It's a problem many teachers are concerned about right now because the students who are home cannot access their classes, and nothing can be done without internet access anymore. We can't even take attendance. We cannot edit a Google Doc without internet access. So when that goes down, it kind of freezes everything up until it comes back on. We hope that these outages do not continue. So if the COVID vaccines and the recent internet outages could be discussed tonight and then followed up on to some degree, it will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Are there any other members of the public that would like to participate tonight? Jeanette?
Hi, Jeanette Picard, reading consultant at the middle school, and then, of course, co-president of our association. I really just wanted to say welcome to our interim superintendent and to let you know, and in public, that we are looking forward to working with you. We certainly, as Ken mentioned, have a lot of issues happening right now, but we are ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work together to help resolve many of these issues together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeanette. Are there any other members of the public that would like to participate? Okay, seeing none, we will move along to our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we accept our consent agenda.
Second. Thank you. A motion by John to approve the consent agenda as presented and seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question going back to the communications?
Sure.
You mentioned an additional letter or two that was received, and I'm concerned that I didn't receive it. And I went back to my board email. So if I'm the only one, then please, let's not. But
You got it.
I went back to my board email, and I don't see it. So I just want to make sure that I'm not the only one.
I'm not.
You're not the only one.
You're not the only one. No.
So I think that there might be information that the board doesn't necessarily
All right.
have.
Would you like me to read the whole thing?
And that's not necessarily what I'm asking, but I just want to make it clear that,
I could do two things. I could forward it to everybody, or I could read the whole thing.
I prefer you would forward it to everybody.
Got it.
it depends on, I guess it depends on what the ultimate goal is for the evening.
Just to share that it was communicated with.
So there's no action.
No action
Okay,
at all.
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, and in the meantime, I will forward it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, we have, at this point in the agenda, we have our student representatives report. Delton, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Delton.
Hi, Delton. Oh, there you go.
Do you have a report for us tonight, Dalton?
Yes, I do.
Excellent.
All right, hello everyone, and hello joining me, Superintendent. I'm Dalton Wentworth. I'm your student body representative. And to begin last meeting, I pointed out there were some flaws in distance learning, one of which was that it was much more difficult for teachers to engage students in their class. I would like to clarify that I meant the environment made it awkward for students to speak up and ask questions, which is not at all fault of the teachers, administration, or this board. Also, after discussing it with several of my friends who have been distance learning for 3 months now, they agreed with my statement that the environment is a little bit awkward for them to speak up. And although it is more boring than in person, it also does allow them to personally organize their schedule when they're at home. However, in this case, they were both upperclassmen, so they do already have a more tested system than those whose only high school experience is with COVID-19. They also told me that they are confident that other distance learners were experiencing similar issues of being bored and not being engaged as much as in person. Also, as many of you know, midterms begin this week, and due to the at-home learners having access to essentially any resource they want, many teachers have decided to make their midterms open note, which is an appreciated change, but actually I find making the actual questions on the exam a little bit more difficult because now you have more resources at your expense. So on all, the change is a new challenge for all of the students to take on, but at least a welcome one, as it levels the playing field between in-person and online students. Also, tomorrow we will begin to film a recruitment video for Lyman, which I personally am a part of, which will hopefully vastly increase enrollment at Lyman, as oftentimes we lose a lot of the middle schoolers to other tech schools. So it is a bit of a questionable year to do it, but it is much better for it to come out sooner than never. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to ask. And also last meeting I mentioned something about maybe a Board of Ed statement, so I was wondering if you had anything on that.
I have some questions, Dalton. Can I ask some questions first?
Go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, I always ask this question, but I want to know, what is the overall morale of the student body at Lyman?
Probably a little stressed at the moment as it is exam week.
Okay.
But I think that's more of a specific scenario.
Okay.
I think the Lyman's doing pretty good right now. I think the fact that we're in person is just great because when we're all distance learning, we're never nearly as focused and we never learn quite as much, I find.
And last time you were talking about how in December, I believe you said 30% or 33% of the student body was missing. Are you seeing more students coming back now?
I'd say it's about the same.
Okay.
About give or take. I think some students did come back after Christmas break.
Okay.
So that was something, but I think it's relatively the same.
Okay.
Some leave and some come back.
And the last thing I wanted to ask, is it possible, Dalton, because I know you are such a worldly kid and you have you have contacts everywhere, is there any way to get maybe a report from the middle school, maybe hook up with like an 8th or a 7th grader so that they can...
I've been meaning to do that.
Perfect, okay.
I will look into that.
Yeah, and if possible, the elementary school too, but I would love to know what the middle school is thinking at this time.
I was going to email the elementary school principal, and the middle school I'll probably talk to Mr. L or something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job.
All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Dalton, can you clarify the Board of Education statement? Can you clarify?
Last time I mentioned that one thing that the student body doesn't really have all that much of is just information about what your general thought process is, and whether we'll be open or closing or anything like that. So I was asking for a Board of Education statement to the students that so that way they could be more well informed.
Great, thanks, Dalton.
Okay, she's writing her homework down, so we'll be ready next time.
Yeah, we said
That's
that
that's your assignment, Matt.
Okay.
Months delayed.
Fine, I'll do it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dawn.
So there is communication that comes out from the superintendent or now from the current superintendent, and it's not necessarily from the board. So is the goal to get a statement from the board, or like what do you think is the information that I'm all about communication, so I would love to know what you think is or the students are looking for.
Just generally, I think that is kind of the thing, is that we don't even know what we're looking for, because, I don't know, we're not all too well informed. I think the superintendent message is very helpful. But I think something in general would be maybe like, at what point do you think you would start really considering shutting down this school? Like, at what level of severity of COVID, like in the area and in the state, until Lyman and the rest of the public schools shut down? I think that would be a big thing, because then we would just generally like have it in our mind. It's like, okay, the numbers aren't that bad yet, so.
Yeah, I think that is such a fantastic question, Dylan. If the board had the answer to that question or the ability to communicate that, I think we'd be in really good shape right now. I mean, I think that's what we're all sort of, kind of weeding through this muck together. And if we can make the students feel as if they're communicated with a bit more, might be the bottom line. But I don't know that we could come out and give a statement that says, once we get to this point, we're going to be remote, or once we get to this point, we're going to be hybrid. We did try that, as you know, with the state following those state guidelines, and even as you saw, those changed. So it's, a lot of things are unfortunately out of the board's control, but I definitely think that it's appropriate to keep students in the loop as to how we do make our decisions and what our thought processes are. So I think that's a valid point. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dylan.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to our reports of committees. Why don't we start over here? I don't think we have too many tonight. Matt, you no report, or Nicole, are you ready, or should I go with you?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll make it short. So the Finance Facilities Subcommittee meeting took place also. We had two of them. So one was specifically for lighting that was presented on January 5th. We had two companies, Environmental Systems Corp and Earthlight, present for 30 minutes each on how we would like to replace all the fluorescent lighting in all three schools to LED. So we had both companies present like different scenarios of just replacing bulbs versus replacing entire fixtures. So we will be meeting next Tuesday on the 19th to make a decision on which company we'd like to go with and how we're going to proceed. The other meeting that we had was just tonight at 6:45, and we talked about, first of all, the operating budget for 2021. Mr. Serpensky has told us that we will probably end up on a positive note for 2021. We may be over for the insurance, meaning we have to pay more for the insurance for teachers. We received $145,000 for COVID relief this past year, and he is putting through the paperwork to get state reimbursement on that. And he informed us that the CARES Act was approved by the state. The CARES Act 2 has been approved by the state, but he's not sure when we will be seeing that money or which year we're going to be receiving that money for. Then we talked about the quarterly reports, and there really isn't much to report on that. Next, we talked about the superintendent search funding. Mr. Serpensky also assured us that we do have money to hire a company for this search. This week, we're going to be looking at two different companies to go forward with, and we can get money from either the insurance overage or magnet school overage. We can do transfer very easily. Next was the operating budget for 21-22. 2022. Right now, we are at a 5.7% increase, so we will be meeting in the next couple weeks to be talking about if we need to shave this number down. And we also will be looking at insurance, because for the past 3 years, insurance, we've been under budgeting for that, so we may talk about maybe increasing that line item as well. And then finally, we talked about the LES building project. Some of you may know that the 66 wing and the 56 wing at LES is in dire need of repair for their ventilation system. I believe they have no return air coming in. They have to crack open windows. So Pat Saccone sent a letter to the town officials on January 4th, and we are still waiting for a response. And our next meeting is on next Tuesday, January 19th at 7 p.m.
Can I just add one little clarification? So the money that we're talking about, this is for the people out there in video land, for lack of a better term. Is it the money for the search for the superintendent? They're going to assist us in the search. They're not going to actually, they're going to assist us. So I don't want people to be confused that they're doing it all. They're going to work with us. Okay. That's all.
Dawn? I'm sorry.
My question is, we use a lot of terms that are very internal. Can you explain to me at LES the 66?
Yes.
Which
Okay, and we're going to clarify this. So I'm thinking the 66 wing is the 3rd, 2nd, and the 4th grade wing. The 56 wing is the 1st grade. I'm pretty sure that is correct?
Correct. We never call it, I don't ever call it 56.
I've never heard this.
It's just all the 66 wing?
I just call it the first grade wing.
Okay.
So the 1st grade wing is after you go past the office and the gym.
Yep.
It's like down there.
That first hallway.
And then 66 is the top or the bottom?
Both. It's a whole building.
It's good to know. Both of my children are in there, and they're not currently, but like I don't know that.
Yeah.
So most people, when we use these terms, they don't know this.
Yep.
So I think that we need to like revisit the terminology that we're using. Not that that's you, because I think it's terminology that we've always used, but like right now it's what?
The
second
older
and third,
wing.
fourth?
Yep.
I don't know.
So first, second, third, and fourth.
Second, third, fourth.
Second and third is on top. Fourth is on bottom.
Third and fourth are on the bottom.
Yep. Third and fourth are on bottom.
Second's
Second's on top. First is after the gym and that way. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
All I know is it's not the same when I went to school there.
It's not the same when I went to school
All
there.
kinds of extra wings that never were there.
It's not how I was when I was at school there. So it's very confusing. So like when you talk about, not you, but like when it's talked about like the stuff that has to be done, it still doesn't even make sense to me. And so if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense to anybody else.
Right. Okay, so first, second, third, and 4th grade wing.
That doesn't make any sense to me either, because I don't know where the kids are.
Does anybody have any other questions for Nicole? Danelle?
You're talking about the lighting project, and you used the word, which one we will go with. Is that a definite project that we've approved?
No, we still have to talk about it if we are still going to.
I was confused.
I would love to definitely move forward with it, but I'm wishful thinking right now.
Any other questions? Okay, Nicole has the big one for the next few months, that's for sure. And thanks for all that hard work, Nicole.
Yeah.
All right. Any other subcommittee reports? Communications and goals?
Communication goals enrollment has not met. I do want to remind us that we did, as a group, talk about goals a couple months ago, so that has been met. Communications is a big topic, and as Dalton mentioned, I'm hoping that we can really hone in on it.
Yeah, and I would almost like to shift this in that subcommittee's way.
Yeah.
If there's something that maybe the communications subcommittee can meet this month and discuss how to better communicate and involve the students.
Well, the challenge is that we've talked about this since the time I've joined the board, and depending on who is in leadership at the time is how we move forward. So,
I think it might be a good time to revisit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, great. Thanks. Policy, Maureen?
I did talk to Mark last week because he is brand new. I told him we need to get a board and make some changes and go through the stuff. So first I have to get him acclimated to what's going on. And we did talk about that getting together. We just haven't planned the right day yet.
Okay. Great. All right. Alexis, safety and security? No report. Mark. John, superintendent.
We did not meet.
Okay, and Danelle, curriculum.
We did not meet, but we hired a new curriculum director, which you'll be hearing about from Pat later on.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Thanks for being part of that process, Danelle. And Mark's not with us tonight, but in negotiations, we will be meeting again to finish up the instructional assistants contract at the end of the month, and that's it for negotiation. All right, and no governance. Governance did not meet this month. All right, very good. So let's move on to our administrators' reports. Are there any additional reports from the administrators that were not included in the packet? Looks like Rita?
Yes, I have one. Do you want to go there?
Yes.
Okay.
The circles on or the?
No, line.
Thank you. So yes, on Friday afternoon we received the great news that our preschool was reaccredited. So we are. Very excited. Great job. So this is the National Association for Education of Young Children. That is what NIAC stands for. We were supposed to be credited in the spring, but due to the closure, right, we weren't able to. So it is a 5-year accreditation. There are 10 standards in the early childhood standards that we have to follow, as well as creating a classroom portfolio, which our 2 teachers, Megan Meekum and Gretchen Brochu, put together. There's also a program portfolio where myself and traditionally the curriculum director would assist me, which Kathleen did help me as much as she could before her departure in the summer. And there's even a nurse piece where Joanne Surik, who has retired as well, contributed significantly to the program. And there's also a facilities piece where I had to get some information from Kevin French, and then John Jarvis did much of the building pieces that needed to be fixed, because they look at outlet covers, cords, extensions, anything you could think of for the safety of our 3- and 4-year-olds. So it's a really extensive process. We're one of the few schools that are open, right? So they were excited to be able to come in and get us off the list. It was a 4-hour process when the person came to visit, and we were really thrilled. It takes almost 3 months. It occurred on November 17th, so we have been anxiously waiting the results. The last time it was accredited, I was not the administrator at the time. So it was, although I did the process at Griswold Elementary School, where I was the assistant principal there, it wasn't, they had a teacher, because they had 7 teachers there, that really took it over. So I wasn't as involved as I was in this process here at the elementary school. Megan was on maternity leave at the time, the last time, and Gretchen was brand new. So it was quite an experience for us to go through. It really new for the 3 of us. And I can't say enough about the 2 of them. I would say it took over 100 hours over the course of the last 2 years is when the bulk of the most of your work goes into it. Sarah signed over the summer a wonderful agreement that we had for EastCon that was free of charge. So we were also committed to meeting with a representative from EastCon on a weekly basis to make sure we were doing everything we could to pass. So not only did we pass, but our average scores 5 years ago was 81%, and we were at the 98% range for this time. So, I just want to thank again Megan Meekum, Gretchen Brochu. There are also 3 instructional assistants that are a huge component to that program. Julie Lake, Karen Konow, and actually Betsy Smith is also in that. And so, thank you to all of them. And then, of course, to everyone else, as I mentioned, that contributed. I was able to email Joanne Zurich and tell her the good news. So, and John and just so many other people contributed. So that didn't make the report, but it was really exciting. So we couldn't celebrate as we usually would, but the girls did send me a picture over the weekend that they got their nails done. So that was good. So thank you. Do you have any questions about the process or?
No, we're just happy we got 98s.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Great. So, and thank you for supporting that contract and all that. I know you had to come in, and appreciate that.
No, thank you. I mean, that's
and you got to visit today, right?
Oh, great. The preschool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Preschool's the only two classrooms that look normal because the addendums from the state are different. The kids are allowed to mingle more, and there's not so much, of the isolation of the 6 feet. Those things aren't the same in preschool. So it's always, nice to see sort of that normalcy, right?
It was wonderful to be in the buildings today. Really, if those of you that haven't heard, Pat and I took a nice walk through the 3 buildings today, and it's just so nice and refreshing, to see their faces. It was great, so thank you.
Yeah, it was. All right, so thank you. Thanks for coming.
Any other administrators that would like to add to their report? Okay, then we will move on to the report of the superintendent. Keeping in mind that this is Pat's second day. A second day working, and I'm sorry, Pat, Dawn, you have a question? Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just have a statement, and I appreciate all of the administrators' reports, but I do want to highlight the elementary school because there's been a lot that's happening there, and there's a lot that's happening at every school, obviously, but for example, like the collection of donations for CCMC was amazing. There's a family in particular, and I know that the administrators can't talk about it, but like I can. So there's a family who is a CCMC family who really not relies on, but like they are dealing with a lot of health issues, and so the fact that the elementary school continues to collect funds for CCMC is amazing. And then this family is also dealing with a relapse, and so then watching the community come together, and not only like community members but teachers who are donating and administrators who are donating and supporting this particular family. It's just been a wonderful experience, and I know that for that particular family to see that family members, administrators, teachers are just sending them all of, whether it's financial or food-based or love, like whatever it is, like the school at the elementary school, they're coming together for this particular family, and I think we just need to acknowledge it. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rita. All set? Yeah, ready for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at enrollment first, and I have the enrollment report that you have in your report that we prepared, and so we are at this point at 951 students currently enrolled. It's interesting to talk with administrators because it's almost a day-by-day kind of circumstance where they're all, I think, anticipating probably having more students coming back into the buildings. Just basically the difference between the remote learners and the in-person learners. And parents who, justifiably so, were concerned about holiday plans and holiday preparations and had their kids out for a period of time. What's interesting about this enrollment report, and I'll stop for a moment and just ask if you have questions regarding this report that you see on a monthly basis, before I go to the NESDEC report, which I think you've all seen and looked at. What's interesting about the two of them is the fluctuation and the difference that NASDAQ is reporting and yet where the district lands. So let me ask first if you have questions about the enrollment report, if there's anything that you need. Okay. So then if you're looking at the NASDAQ, you see the trend going down. And it's not leaps and bounds, but, any type of decline really impacts school districts, particularly when you look at your cost per pupil to educate and the way that people tend to compute that. But if we look at the decline, we're also seeing in this NASDAQ report that ultimately it begins to tip upward a bit. Also, I think by, I think it was 2030? Yes, by 2030, but before we get to 2030,
Thanks. I couldn't remember first. Yeah, I couldn't remember first.
it's showing us Well, I think what my point is as I review this and I look at others, by 2020, this is 2020, this is 2021, it showed a decline to about 901 students. We're at 951 and probably will pop up a little bit more. I have to believe, as I look at districts across the state, that there's a lot going on here. The fact that Lyman High School, for example, and traditionally enrollment drops or declines in the high school years, where it may be very strong in the elementary years, given the programs and the competition that's around for different types of programs. And yet Lyman has a number of very attractive programs which are very different than most comprehensive high schools. And I think that probably, today I talked with Jay regarding the recruitment video that's going out. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening that I think is very interesting. Discussion today with the board chair, just a futuristic kind of speculation about pre-K. And we know that rating each other's high schools and upper grade levels never solves enrollment issues for anyone. But looking at expansions in pre-K and looking at creating that culture where, families become very vested in where their children are, makes school districts much more attractive. So, yes, I am the superintendent that has told other districts in public hearings, it's a good idea to think about universal pre-K, it's a good idea to think about expansion of programs, and that is how you see your enrollment ultimately. So you're on the right path. I think it's a fair report, given that most school districts in Connecticut are losing at least 5% a year of enrollment, and that's due to circumstances far beyond anyone's control in this room. And when Connecticut begins to bounce back, we'll see where that goes. But it's a fair report, it's a good report. I'm happy to take any questions or do some further research if that's of interest to any board members. Dawn?
My question is, following up on what Dalton has talked about over the last couple of meetings, in terms of how to keep students that are coming from 8th grade into Lyman. Or do you have any thoughts on that? Or what the board should consider as we move forward?
Yeah. Well, I certainly think that, I don't want you to think that this is scapegoating, but obviously COVID has had a tremendous impact on everyone. So that's going to change some of our thinking in terms of our program and what we do. It also, I don't mean to terrorize anyone, but it really should be factored in terms of our new positions when we look at those. How we're going to serve our students, what we're going to find when all of our students are back in person, and what are the deficits we're going to find. I think those are going to be important, and the more that we can address in that area, I think the better for our students, and that will be an attractive area. Surprisingly, I think there's a lot of room, and obviously you know my background, having served as the state of Connecticut superintendent over all of the technical schools, and I've heard more than one person just today talk about the loss of students who are attracted to the technical schools. There's a great deal of area for growth in that area here in your own comprehensive high school, and also dipping down into 7th and 8th grade, which I think is really something to be considering. Because you've got a very big building here, and you have some classrooms that are ready. Classrooms that I learned today were actually used at one time differently as high school classrooms. So there's a lot to look at there. I spent a great deal of my time as the state superintendent going around to comprehensive high schools, East Hartford, Manchester, New Britain, where administrators and superintendents in those districts were interested in what they might do in their own schools that would make them more competitive. And there's plenty of hands-on performance type work, more math and science rooted and so on, for students. So, I mean, early thoughts, those are very early thoughts. I've really only had the reins here for a couple of days, but, it's well worth thinking about, sure.
Thank you.
And I really would be looking at, you just have an incredible to not only achieve the NIAC accreditation, but to achieve it at the standards that you did. That's amazing. That is a tough accreditation, and I just think now is the time to show people that, and think about all the little ones that aren't there yet.
Is there a way that we could capitalize on that in the media aspect of letting others around in the area know that we've got that little cap and how well we did?
Absolutely. It certainly should be the subject of any of the superintendent's regional meetings that I'm going to.
I'm just thinking more even on like not just a radio station kind of discussion or something like that. I'm not saying for you, but I'm just, something.
Yes.
Or in a newspaper article or something in the Lebanon Life or something along those lines. To, we've done something good here and we need to talk about it.
Yep. Absolutely. Other questions regarding that report and enrollment? Okay.
Do you happen to know the numbers of distance learners now that the break is over in regards to these numbers?
I'm sorry.
Do you happen to know the number of distance learners?
Well, of course, the entire middle school is learning remotely at this point, so that entire complement. And then I think it's about a third of the high school population. I don't have the exact number, but it's about a third, I think. Poor administrators, I call them every day and ask them, where we are, what does it look like? And I think, Rita, we met last week, and you said you were...
Yeah, we're lower than that. And it's hard, we're starting to differentiate because what's occurring is there are distance learners who permanently are distance learners, but there's also been, especially after these vacations, right, some that need to quarantine, and so it's been important for the staff and I, in our conversations prior as an admin team, to talk about, right, guys, the different, there's still a large amount of kids out because of quarantine reasons. So it's hard to give the exact numbers. Is that how you feel? I certainly don't have the elementary school as many as Jay does. I think you have the most, right? Yeah. But I'm looking at that template.
But we have people that went on vacation during the holidays, so they had to quarantine, when they're back. We have other people that wanted to see how the first week, plus of school went, and they were coming back after the first 2 weeks of school to see how how things fared in the school. So our numbers will continue to go down slightly.
So I'm looking at 65 at LES. And what am I at? 330?
335.
Yeah. And again, like Jay said, we started putting dates like when the child is supposed to be returning to help us through that process.
Right before the holiday break, when we went out, we were at 156 on this list. As of, I think right now I have 105 on here, but Monday we were at like 100. So
yeah. And you're at like 70, LMS to 72, but then he's the same way short term. It's another 10 kids that are in and out.
So that number is not supposed to be fluid, but it is because of quarantine, like it changes constantly. An attendance nightmare, which is why we have people hired to do that.
Yeah,
right.
that is it. Because we can't get even our attendance until about 1:30. Well, we have pre-K PM. We usually can't get it all. She can't send that out till after 2. So we only had one secretary.
This would have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
We could not keep up with this.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's been huge.
Is there still, people have to give you a certain amount of notice before they switch to DL or back?
Yeah, a lot of times people will give us, like, we will be returning on this date after, like vacation when they came back. They would give us a return date. We just had today somebody who came back to school today who hasn't been in school since the start of the year. So that was great. It was great to see, this person come back. This person was a freshman, hadn't ever been to any of their classes in the building, and was back today. Luckily, they had an older sister who, took them around, so it was good.
More questions? All right, just very quickly on an update on the COVID-19 impacts. I don't know what you're typically used to hearing, but let me at least update you on that it is still a tremendous impact on the day-to-day. Principals are running around, the school nurses are fielding so many phone calls and touch plates with parents who are worried and concerned. I'm on the phone with the public health district repeatedly, just in a day, constantly. And just the reporting out of something that happens, the contact tracing, when it comes in over the weekend and all of those things, it's tremendously time consuming, and we've got to get it right because it's health and safety. So you've seen a couple of my letters already. I'm still working with what the systems were. I did sort of hit the roof earlier today on some things that were part of the mechanism, so I conferred with the public health district and worked with just basically took a template and developed a form, and now I think, if we ever have these pandemics, or God forbid this continues to exist, it will be something that your new superintendent will just have a file folder and see exactly what information has to be collected, who it has to be reported to, and how it goes out and gets attached to the letters that go out and all of that. Have to be so careful. I'm confident the administrators and I in the central office are doing the very best job of not divulging information, but at the same time giving the information so that people know they're safe. We've got to be careful about, the translation of HIPAA laws into FERPA. So the COVID-19 is still very much with us. I'm attending a lot of meetings. as recently as this morning, despite the fact that some school districts are trying to develop a vaccination plan. I'm listening to the Department of Public Health, the statewide Department of Public Health. They are saying that the Vaccination Allocation Committee has not made its decisions definitive yet. So when we say 1B and we say that education is in phase 1B, we really don't know whether that is classroom teachers, bus drivers, custodians, anyone who interfaces in a school with one another and kids, or whether it's just teachers. Last week we learned that even though we may designate a school nurse as a school nurse, it doesn't apply. They have to determine that that is a healthcare worker by virtue of their description of what the actual duties are. So, suffice it to say, it's a day-by-day monitoring kind of thing.
So, having worked in healthcare and having been exposed to this vaccination stuff already, it's not, and we're in healthcare, it has not been an easy, smooth rollout at all. So I'm just letting you know that as teachers, it's not that we're not trying to, I'm not saying we, but the town is not trying to give them it. It's just a very difficult process because not only do you have to get one shot, you have to get the second shot in the right amount of time, and it's a process.
There's some interesting things that are happening in terms of mandating the vaccine. There's really no information yet from our board's attorneys on whether or not we can mandate vaccines. I think we know when we're dealing with parents and decision makers with children, it's very hard to mandate things. We do have an obligation to, as employers, if you will, the Board of Ed, to provide a safe workplace. How do you do that when some are vaccinated, perhaps others are not? There was also some reference to possibly and I don't know how this would be possible because the vaccination administration management system is what's going to tell each of us where we go and when we go and all of that appointment-wise for vaccinations. But they're saying to us, if you have any wherewithal at all, to ask people to stagger their vaccinations because the point of vaccination 1 is a certain reaction, my arm hurts, it's sore, whatever, and that's it. Vaccination 2, the response to it can be a little bit more like when you come down with the flu, the regular flu or whatever. It can put you down for a couple of days. So basically the initial vaccination allocation committee warning was don't send your entire workforce for vaccination 2 at the same time. You're likely to have just about everybody out for a couple of days just recovering from what feels like the old flu.
We've had a number of people that have had the second shot that have been out for several days.
So with that said, I also have, and I'm trying to be cooperative with the health department, they are responding to moms and dads who are saying they simply cannot get their children ages 6 months to 18 years the regular flu shot. They're just not able to get that. So they're running clinics. There is one in Norwich at the Senior Center that's coming up on Thursday. I will put this out through Thrill Share so people at least know that's available to them. That's the COVID news. And then finally, if there are no further questions on the COVID, I'm sorry, Jim.
How would surmise that the middle school being remote might pressure others, but how are we doing staffing-wise?
We actually seem to be doing well. We did have a case today. I think we're in very good shape. I think that's changed. Jay was talking today about what a huge difference in staff attendance.
Yeah. a lot more challenging before the vacation. Coming back, a lot better. I mean, without having to compete for ourselves with the middle school.
When it's school closes, we're like, Jana, it's in the next school. Jana, like, yes, you go, our subs.
Yeah, we're going to thumb wrestle each other for subs.
Yeah.
And then we're going to battle the other school districts. The subs just cannot be found anywhere in the right supply. So I'm feeling pretty good about that other than the sub issue. And our sub rate of pay is not the highest in the world. It's certainly reasonable, but it's not the highest. And so a lot of school districts are, finding budget dollars and they're wanting to increase that. And that makes it even more competitive. Any other questions on that score? Okay. And then finally, the curriculum director is on board, very excited, is communicating with us. She is arriving on January 19th, Tuesday the 19th, which is a funny kind of day to start, but she was scheduled for the 18th, and that's a holiday, so she will be one of the few lucky people who begins her career on a holiday. But she's coming in, and we already have her scheduled for the elementary school PLC meeting that both she and I will be attending. I did ask today in central office to make sure that we're getting her all set up so she doesn't arrive on the 19th and then wait for email and all that stuff. So we get all that ready for her. She's very excited. She's all set.
We'd love to meet her at the February meeting, if possible.
That'd be great.
That would be
nice.
That would be great for an introduction.
Are we allowed to know her name and where she's from?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that would have been announced before. Her name is Holly Hollander. And she is the former, played an instrumental role in the Connecticut Science Center, post her being in school positions. I think her last position was in Cromwell. Very excited, high energy kind of person.
Good. Great.
Any questions? Well, Pat, thanks for that superintendent's report on your second day with us. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's move on to our finance report for the 2020-2021 budget and quarterly report.
Nicole recapped most of those items in her report, so what I'd like to do is go into more detail on the COVID-19 relief funds, because that's very impactful for the 2021 budget and possibly the 21-22 budget. As Nicole reported, I did submit today for reimbursement to the state for the money we spent between July 1st this year and December 30th. That's the period that was covered by the Corona Relief Fund, as it's called. Our funding for that was $145,149. It was broken out into two main categories. $125,000 was in non-salary expense, and the remaining $20,149 was for salaries. I'd just like to cover what that actually covered. In the biggest pot of money for the non-salary expenses, that took care of paying for our tents that we purchased, basically almost all of our protective shields, gloves, masks, sanitizers, water bottle filling stations, isolation gowns, floor markings, almost anything that you can think of that was related to health, safety, or PPE. So that $125,000 will come back once I receive the funds from the state, which should be in February. I will do journal entry credits to our general ledger, so you'll see your year-to-date expenses be credited by that amount. The $20,000 and $149 that was for salaries, that paid these salaries for the 3 temporary custodians from the day they were hired through the payroll ending December 24th. It paid for the one CNN that we've had on staff, her payroll for that same time frame, and it paid for one pay period from one of the other CNAs who has since left. So that's how the money was spent. I've received information from the CASBO legislative liaison, who works very closely with all the legislators in Hartford. And for now, it's being called CARES Act Round 2. I'm sure there's going to be a catchy acronym for that grant that was awarded from the federal government. And the state's portion that's going to go for K through 12 funding is $492 million. Now, it's supposed to support expenses related to the pandemic, from safety features for school buildings to additional staff. At this time, I don't know what that means. I'm assuming covered expenses will be very similar to the last round, with one exception I'm hoping for. In the Corona Relief Fund, we were not allowed to submit any expenses related to technology, devices, or software, because that was covered in the ESEER fund. That's been since expired. We also don't know the time frame. My assumption is it's going to be from January 1st going forward. There's a strong possibility it might extend beyond this fiscal year. So depending on the size of the money that we do receive, the time frame, and what it might be allowed to be spent on, it could be used to cover the fourth grade elementary teacher we have here. We could possibly apply it to the ventilation upgrades that we did recently. So that could be very impactful for how we end this year as well, and going into next year. I will say this, that from my perspective, the Lebanon School District is ahead of the curve in terms of being open. I watch the news and read, and my understanding is that even within Connecticut, we have districts that have been closed to in-person learning since the pandemic began. I believe New Haven, which is a huge district, still is out completely. I hope I'm not mistaken in saying that, but I know the President-elect has discussed adding more funding to help open schools. So that could be impactful for next year's budget, when we hopefully will know more further along the way. So I think it's important to touch on fully understanding what the money's been spent for, what it could be spent for in the future, and it still leads us into this uncertain environment. But right now we're, I think, going to end the year, if things don't go totally out of control, with a positive balance. So if you have any questions related to that, or quarterly reports, or 21-22 budget, but I would say related to the 21-22 budget, which obviously we're going to get into a lot more analysis in Nicole's subcommittee meetings. You have all been provided with the incremental cost impact for the position initiatives, as I call them, and as usual in education, staffing and benefits are the largest part of any school budget, so those would be impactful. If you have any questions or want me to go into detail with anything else, I'd be glad to.
I think we did discuss during Nicole's subcommittee also the importance of Pat having an opportunity to take a look at the proposed initiatives, along with any other items in the budget. And she would like to do that, and I think it's important that we, keep that in mind. These are proposed, but certainly nothing is set in stone, and we definitely want to hear Pat's thoughts on the initiatives, as well as the current status of our budget.
With all due respect, I'd like to revisit our board's decision about communications, and in terms of being in our current school system and wearing masks as we communicate with one another. We are expecting our teachers to wear it. We were expecting all of our staff to wear it. I believe that we are also expecting that anybody that is participating in a board meeting is also wearing a mask. So I'm feeling very uncomfortable right now. Like, to the point where I'm not listening to the reports because our shared agreement is not being met right now.
Heard. All right, we will all continue to wear our masks throughout the board meeting, even when presenting. Are there any other questions or comments for Bob on the budget? The proposed initiatives? I think it seemed like everybody was sort of in agreement that we were comfortable hearing, we want to give Pat some time. Sound good, Pat?
Absolutely.
Okay, Matt?
This is kind of a general question, and it's kind of more directed at Kevin, but I'm just thinking of the budget and stuff. Are we all done with the oil tanks? Are the oil tank thing completely done?
The last piece we have, Matt, is to put a fence around, a safety fence around the stairs going up the oil tank.
And when is that expected to be completed?
That's going to be early spring, so I have not found a bidder willing to do it.
Can you repeat that, Kevin?
That's going to be probably early spring now, since the vendor, Fence Man and Son, neglected to give us a price on doing it, so I'm actually exploring other vendors at this point.
Are we susceptible to any liability because we don't have that fence, or what's the issue with that?
I think what we're going to probably end up doing this week is blocking it off, so nobody can access the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Can we follow up on this, Nicole, at your next Finance and Facilities meeting, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Janelle?
I just have a quick question for Bob, trying to figure out what page it's on. It has to do with the assistant principal initiative. I just didn't understand how the numbers are working here. The incremental salary increase, is that from her current position? Because then it also lists the social studies teacher at .4. I just didn't understand how those numbers, what they mean exactly.
Right now, the assistant principal's position is a .6 FTE in the administrative role of assistant principal and a .4 social studies teacher. So if the initiative were approved, the person in that position would become a full-time assistant principal, and that salary piece that's identified there would be that cost for that .6 going from .6 to 1.0. And then because she is occupying a .4 FTE position, that would, the number below that is the incremental salary expense for having the person who's here going from .6 to .4. I mean, .6 to 1.0. Because you have to replace her teaching component as well.
Okay, so it's not talking about the same person. It's the first
It's two different people.
Okay, got it.
And it'll be one person moving over into another slot. There's no impact on health insurance under the current proposal because the two people are already here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you, Bob. All right, our next item on the agenda is only one action item, act on the letter of retirement.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Mrs. Strome's letter of retirement with regret.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting Mr. Strome's letter of retirement with regret, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and we wish Mr. Strome all the best, even though he will be with us until the end of the school year, so we'll have time for that. Absolutely. Thank you. Are there any items that we should put on next agenda?
I'm just going at whether the budget's going to be on the next agenda.
Yes, definitely. Anything else? All right. Remember, you can always email those items to any of us. All right. Very good. Thank you so much, everybody. We will adjourn at 8:41.
Wow, that's a record.
So our next meeting is next